Digital First Podcast. Shaping the future of informatics education in primary and secondary schools.
Welcome to the third episode of Digital First Podcast. We're here where we explore how technology is shaping the future of education for the next generation. The Digital First project is helping reimagine informatics education in primary and secondary schools across Europe, making it more relevant to digital lives of today's students. With 15 partners in 11 countries, we are working to bring innovative teaching approaches into classrooms. And in this series, we're joined by teachers, researchers, and education experts to explore one big question. What kind of informatics education do digital natives really need? I'm your host, Mario Lima, the Digital Ambassador at the Teacher Training Center of Póvoa de Varzim and Vila do Conde in Portugal, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. Informatics education has come a long way from word processors to artificial intelligence, but as technology evolves, so do the needs of our students. Today's learners are digital natives surrounded by technology since birth, yet schools still struggle to make informatics education truly relevant to them. In this episode, we ask how can digital resources and artificial intelligence help us rethink the way we teach informatics. To explore this, we're joined by three guests who bring unique perspectives: a university professor shaping teacher training, a researcher working on digital learning and AI, and a digital content expert transforming educational publishing. Let's dive into this conversation on how digital resources and artificial intelligence can truly reshape informatics education, not just by adding technology, but by reimagining how we teach and learn. It's time to meet our guests. We're delighted to welcome Neuza Pedro, professor at the Institute of Education of University of Lisbon. She's one of Portugal's leading voices in digital learning and teacher education. Neuza has played a key role in shaping how technology supports teaching and professional development, always with a focus on innovation that makes a real difference in schools. We're also very pleased to welcome Nuno Dorotea, assistant professor and researcher at the same institute. His work bridges research and practice with a special focus on how digital tools can improve formative assessment, personalized learning, and strengthen teacher digital skills. He brings deep insight into the opportunities and challenges of this digital transformation in schools. And joining us from the publishing world, we have Rui Pacheco, Learning Technologies Lab Director at Porto Editora. Rui has led the development of some of Portugal's most impactful digital education platforms, with a strong focus on user experience and content innovation. He offers a unique perspective on how digital resources are reshaping the classroom. Hello, Neuza, Nuno, and Rui, and welcome to the Digital First Podcast. Let's start by understanding how technology is currently shaping the educational experience of students and teachers. Neuza, how do you see the current role of digital technologies in education, particularly in teacher training and professional development?
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for hosting us. And thank you also for the question. I think it's quite relevant today, as it has been for the last decade, I would say. So I will organize my answer in two different approaches. One is digital technologies and as an inevitable topic on teachers' initial education and continuous professional development. And the other one, it's about digital technologies has a mean or a way to promote teacher training and professional development. So for the first idea, I would like to say that teachers today, as they have been, they really need to think about how they use technology as citizens and how they use it as professionals. And they also need to reflect about the way they use it, because they will be the ones responsible for promoting their students' reflection about the topic. And if they do not, who will? And this is a very powerful question. If we need to have citizens that are aware, that are well informed, that critically use, but also think about digital technologies, if they do not do it in schools, where else will they do it? Will they do it in their homes? Will they do it in their leisure time? And if they do it only in those two different areas, it can be critical because they might not be well supervised in the process and well oriented and guided in that process. So I will start by saying that digital technologies are very relevant as a topic that teachers need to feel comfortable about using, thinking, and reflecting on it. The second idea is the fact that digital technologies are as well a mean for teachers to train themselves and to interact with others that can help them in their professional development process. So specifically nowadays, teachers can go online, find very, very interesting online courses. They can find also very interesting content. So digital technologies are a way that teachers can use for promoting their own professional development. And we can do it formally, like on courses, as I said, but they can also do it very informally, like using collaborative platforms, community of practices, where teachers work with each other, reflect on their own realities, share content, share strategies. So these are also very powerful spaces for teachers to engage, to improve their practices in a very informal way. So I would, and I know that I need to be brief. So I would finalize by this idea. Technologies is also a way of promoting teachers' professional development.
Thank you, Neuza. Now, Nuno, let's look at it from the student side. In what ways are informatics classes today adapting to the digital habits and expectations of students?
Hi, thank you for your invitation and for having me here. Responding to your question, in the teaching of computer science, teachers have continuously adapted their pedagogical practices as well as the activities and projects developed by students to technological advancements and social changes. Generally speaking, because there are always exceptions, emerging technologies in computer science often find place and spaces for exploration and experimentation. For instance, more recently we see the use of robotics and microcontroller platforms used to learn how to code and how to create projects to solve problems. Virtual and augmented reality, cloud computing, and now artificial intelligence. This allows the materialization and brings innovation to a curriculum that sometimes is outdated, but especially serves to motivate students to learn and to bring the subjects covered closer to the needs, to their needs and the needs of companies and the job market. Naturally, in the field of technology, the curriculum tends to become outdated very quickly. That's why it's important to remember that in the case of vocational courses, students are expected to complete a professional internship during their academic journey. And by the end of the course, enter the job market. From this perspective, it's essential to bring the curricular approach closer to what companies need today. And AI is on the agenda. For example, Google has already admitted that 25% of new code written by the company was produced by AI. But there are still limitations in solving bugs, sometimes that an experienced human programmer can overcome without difficulty. So it's a long way it's a long journey. This opens up a teaching opportunity, at least in two levels. Students understand AI as an assistant who also makes mistakes and is not always the solution. This opens up a place where they need to reflect and have a critical thinking to solve that bugs that AI cannot do it. Students can analyze and generate code to correct an error and solve it. It seems like a redundancy, detecting and correcting errors in a solution that the AI has proposed for correcting errors that it has detected, but it's very important for deepening learning. In other computer science subjects, such as ICT in primary and lower secondary education, teachers try to integrate the digital tools into activities that are close as possible to students' habits and the way they use technology in their daily lives. They aim to foster students' creativity by developing projects focused on recent tools and platforms that allow high levels of customization and emphasizes the real-world applications. So digital technology enables the implementation of genuine, collaborative, and peer-driven learning practices, which are often framed within project or problem-based approaches, aiming to find solutions to real-world problems and needs from a multidisciplinary perspective. Naturally, these approaches are more likely to meet students' expectations and clearly reflects a concern with ensuring the promotion of digital citizenship and ethics. These are competencies that are defined as essential by the end of compulsory education. The teaching of computer science has evolved significantly and has followed the trends. Whenever possible, it adopts strategies aligned with students' digital habits and expectations without neglecting the importance of addressing the real-world context. So this is a way in teaching informatics that use AI to help students thinking and reflect about what they are doing and solve problems from their context and from the real world.
Thanks, Nuno. That gives us a better view of what's happening in education and in classrooms. Rui, from the perspective of educational publishing, what changes have you observed in schools' expectations regarding digital content and resources?
Hi, thank you for having us in this call. What I think about it is that there is a huge gap between what is made available by us and by other providers and what schools and teachers are really using or expect to use or want to use. That being said, we cannot look at schools, at least in Portugal, in a more varied way, because the problem is that even within the same school, we have different realities, we have different expectations. If we think about, for instance, teachers from the intermediate levels do have a certain amount of will to work with digital approaches, let's say so. For instance, secondary teachers are more concerned with exams and so on, and that tends to be an obstacle to introducing digital or whatever different pedagogical approach. So it's not really about digitalizing stuff. The real problem is that most of the expectations are still taking something from the known world, the printed world or whatever, and make it digital. So the expectations are pretty the same as they were, I would say, 15 years ago, unfortunately, for most of the teachers we work with. That has a lot to do with not integrating new uses to the digital resources. So what is happening nowadays is that teachers tend to apply the same approaches they used to apply with digital resources or somehow digital stuff that comes from printed origins or whatever. So what we have is a group of early adopters or enthusiasts or whatever you can call it, that do experiment, do create new approaches, are always the same in all forums that are discussing, are the ones that probably are going to listen to this, are the ones that are going to the conventions to listen to new stuff. But most of the teachers are still very much in the secure land of what they know how to do, and they are not really willing to go beyond projecting stuff on the interactive whiteboard.
Digital First Podcast. Shaping the future of informatics education in primary and secondary schools.
Let's take a closer look at where we are now, what's already working and what still needs improvement. So, Rui, again, Porto Editora has been investing in digital school handbooks. What has been the biggest challenge and opportunity in this transition from print to digital?
Let me start by correcting you. We are not really into digital school handbooks. What we are trying to build from the beginning is an environment where textbooks are an element. Okay, and that's very important because most of the time people tend to think that we are printed textbooks producers, and now we are having the equivalent digital one. So we're not into that business at all. So our view is that we want to create an environment. We call it Escola Virtual. It could be anything else, but our own is that one. And the textbooks are an element, a relevant element of that environment. And the main challenge is to implement whatever digital strategy you want, either it is ours or someone else's, is the inconsistency of public policies regarding infrastructure, connectivity, security, assuring continuous support for schools, and so on. Besides what is happening in Azores and Madeira, all the public initiatives in Portugal have been conditioned by the changing of governments, by some, I would say, not articulated initiatives. So someone creates teaching training that is not really articulated with the computers that are being distributed, with what is supposed to do with those, with the tools to secure that the students are not allowed to access content that is not developed for them, etc., etc. So what we see as the main challenges is that the base ground, so the infrastructure, is not there. And if the infrastructure is not there, everything else collapses. We can do whatever we want to do, but if you can't access the internet, everything dies. So, and in a lot of places in Portugal, there's still a lot of difficulties accessing internet on a regular basis, having the devices available, having the appropriate training to use the devices, having the appropriate solutions to use the devices. And the biggest problem in Portugal, I wouldn't say challenge, is that we invested a lot, but the results are still very, very small. And as I said, besides what is being done in Azores and Madeira, all other initiatives are born and die with the new governments and old governments doing things on their own.
Thank you for your insight, Rui. Neuza, back to you. Are schools and teachers ready to integrate AI tools into their everyday practice, or are there still major barriers to overcome?
I have to fully agree with Rui, and he said, schools and teachers are not well prepared yet not even for digital textbooks, not even to properly integrate cell phones. So when you think about AI, things are a little bit more complex. And what's the cause of this level of complexity? It's the fact that AI is still happening. So other technologies, we had time to accommodate them. AI is still on its piloting phase, and we are still trying to understand what will be its impact. And because we don't like to experiment things with kids, I think we need to be careful, but we need to explore it. So, for instance, when we are trying to develop a new tool, or when we are trying to develop a new medicine, we do not use it on kids on the beginning of the process. So even when we are doing the pre-clinical tests, normally it doesn't involve humans. And the fact is that AI is still on its preclinical tests, I would say. So I think we as a community and we as researchers need to invest a significant amount of time on thinking and measuring and analyzing the impact that it will have on kids, of course. And for doing that, normally universities have time to do research, but schools do not, and teachers do not. I think that teachers nowadays don't have time for anything, even less for researching about their own practices. But even so, you asked about the main barriers that can be still there and what are those barriers and how can we overcome them. And I would like to share with you something that has been real clear, I would say, in the last 40 years about how do we integrate technologies in school, regardless of the technology that we are talking about. And what we have been seeing is that there are two main factors. And these two main factors can be divided in what is called the first order factors that relates to infrastructures with support, with training, and the second order factors that relates to teachers' internal aspects. And this relates mostly with teachers' beliefs about what teachers really want to do, what teachers really want to be as professionals. And if we want to do change, this is the things that we really need to go deep on, okay? And this is now still one of the main barriers when we want to integrate technology. Again, it can be AI, but it can be other solutions like virtual reality, mixed reality, adaptive platforms, whatever the topic. The main thing, of course, we need to solve all the infrastructural problems, but the main thing that we need to consider is what teachers believe about the process that happens inside of the classroom when the door closes. And for doing that, I think now we are living critical moments. And why so? Because from one hand, we have a lot of information about this new hype of technological evolutions and developments that are there for teachers to explore, like AI. But on the other hand, we have new critical documents saying that there is a lot of problems relating to the use of technology. We have new legislations trying to take technology out of the schools. So if I'm a teacher, and if I know that my beliefs are really important for any change that I want to do, but if my beliefs are being fed by different things, and one saying, well, technology are really useful and society uses and the job market needs people to use it. From the other hand, I have politicians saying this needs to get out of schools. We have society saying that we need to promote well-being and we need to understand how we can use it more properly. So I think that nowadays and this was something that was not really happening like 40 years ago, teachers do not know about what they should believe. And this is something that we need to manage, and we need to help them manage. And again, it's not easy because we are piloting a plane that is being built in the process of being used. So I think that AI is critical, but this is not a new type of critical. And the history can help us see what are the lessons learned that we can consider for the process of thinking deeply about how to integrate AI.
Thank you, Neuza. That is very relevant points. Nuno, can you share an example of how AI or digital tools have been meaningfully used in informatics learning and what the impact was?
Yes, of course. In fact, the weak infrastructure in schools is the biggest difficulty that computer science teachers have to deal with, and the volume of administrative tasks, of course. But looking at artificial intelligence, it helps to learning programming, guidance to think and design solutions, and not to give it to the students. Work as a code assistant, and this is very relevant for this learning subject. It helps with self-regulation, checking for errors and supporting understanding them, explore and explains complex and abstract concepts, create simulated scenarios, allowing students to interact with detailed feedback in real time and providing deeper learning. It helps in so many different teaching and learning activities, and especially it helps students to think through a dialogical interaction. About the meaning of AI in informatics learning and thinking in programming companies, they are undergoing major changes. AI has become the main assistant, both in development, where fewer and fewer lines of codes are written manually, and in error detection, as well as code analysis and improvement. There are algorithms that detect and automatically correct errors, and this is a very different way of programming than a few years ago. One example, there are systems that using a single image, such as a screenshot of a streaming platform interface like Netflix or other one, and along with some textual context, can automatically develop a similar platform. This includes all the code, essentially essential models like authentication, for example, and more modern and in a modern and appealing design. In a way, we graphically create the flow and what we want, and the software builds the software entirely automatically. So it's very different from the 10 years ago teaching students to programming line by line. We are in a different step now. Naturally, it will require adjustments and additional functionalities to this system automatically created. And this is very interesting because the students need to understand the code and develop the functionalities that are not in there. And this represents a major advance in this field. About the impact, more time and space to deepen students' learning, which was not always possible due to the level of abstraction and the complexity that are involved in learning programming or coding. It also allows for the development of other subjects that are more closely connected to what is actually happening in society, companies, and many institutions. Students now have a personalized assistant at all times. Every time they have something that can help them. Whenever students need something, which sometimes or many times happens outside the class, AI is available to help them think and to solve problems. And everything is based on a request that returns answers, which can be interacted with and explored further, ensuring a more detailed understanding. Answers instead hyperlinks to resources where the student may or may not have the response that they are looking for. And this was impossible 3-4 years ago. For example, in computer networks, it's a subject that informatics, computer science teachers have in one discipline, in one course. Students can design and test networks configuration in a simulated setup. And through AI-based diagnostics, the AI analyzes the setup and suggests optimizations or identifies anomalies. This enables hands-on learning without hardware that are very expensive, and schools don't have the budget to have the top of the hardware. And it also develops student skills in problem solving and real-time decision-making. Also reinforces understanding of complex and abstract concepts in this area. Many different, for example, in cybersecurity, it's a very hot theme now associated to AI. We can use AI-generated attack simulations and, for example, to simulate phishing attacks or brute force attempts or firewall setups, and students can analyze AI-generated logs to detect anomalies, or the usage of AI bots to simulate cyber threats activities. So more than use of AI to generate resources that's more the first thing that we remember. We can use it to simulate environments, to give students autonomy, to experiment real world issues and opportunities, to have immediate feedback, and the ability to role-play professional context, admin, analysts, developers, etc. So essentially, the impact has been significant, and it allows for the diversification of strategies for learning complex subjects and the application of that learning in real or simulated solutions for everyday problems that students know or experiences themselves, which gives them greater meaning and provides authentic learning experiences. And this can be seen in the participation of our students in international programming and robotic competitions, among many others competitions in the world, that Portuguese students have a very interesting results in them. So it's very interesting how can AI help students to develop their knowledge in so many complex subjects.
Thank you, Nuno.
Digital First Podcast, shaping the future of informatics education in primary and secondary schools.
Now let's look ahead. How can we rethink informatics education to better match the needs of our digital natives? I will start with Rui again. What kind of digital content or platform innovations do you envision for the future of school handbooks or educational platforms like yours?
We are continuously creating new functionalities and trying to add new features to our ecosystem. Of course, artificial intelligence is already playing a part in that development. We are already using AI to, for instance, to convert text to speech, speech to text, automatic translation in multiple languages. For instance, we have a huge problem in Portuguese schools that arises from having a lot of different nationalities within the same classes, and we created tools that allow all the content that is made available through textbooks to be translated into 80 different languages, allowing the students to listen, to interact with their books in their own languages. So that's very important. That was a specific response to a specific problem But what we envision is something that has a lot to do with balancing the freedom for teachers to do whatever they feel it's useful with the tools we provide, but balancing that freedom and that flexibility with a lot of pre-made proposals, a lot of learning and teaching paths already developed, of course, through AI. And we have a huge advantage over a lot of other organizations that are working in this field, because we have curated content for almost every subject from the 1st to the 12th grade. We curate that content continuously. We also have a lot of curated data, learning analytics, and other stuff. And we are training the models with our own data, and that allows us to have a much more secure result in a lot of different experiments we are doing. There are a few things that I would be thrilled to speak about in this meeting, but I cannot speak about because of confidentiality issues. But I can tell you that we are, for instance, working with substituting a lot of what is currently graphic user interfaces with voice commands, and trying to create a different learning curve for teachers to use our platforms by substituting clicking and navigating with their mouse, by interacting by voice. For instance, if you want to attribute a task to a student or a group of students or whatever, probably in our learning system and almost every learning system, you have to go through a lot of menus and select stuff and so on. So we are experimenting with voice activated interfaces in order to facilitate the way teachers engage with our platform. Because one of the problems of being constantly updating the platform is that the teachers just can't cope with the evolution. As Neuza already said, they are not so into technology as probably they should be. There's a lot of conflicting influences in society, the ones that want screens out of schools, the ones that want everything to be digital, the ones that defend whatever you might imagine. And between all that mess, teachers are kind of lost. So even if we believe that every school, every class, every student should be treated as a different human being and should have a specific educational response, what we are realistically seeing is that we have lesser trained teachers, and the future is not bright in that perspective. So we are probably going to have even less knowledgeable teachers, let's say so. So we might be forced with presenting them with a lot of paths already developed for them to choose. So it's a very difficult trade-off between allowing them to adapt, but if you don't know how to navigate, you can just not give them that freedom. I hope you are understanding what I say. It's not the question of not believing in people's choices. It's just that most of the time they are not capable of doing those choices. So we are better off, or at least students are better off, we predetermined, or at least AI generated, or whatever might be the solution, learning path and teaching path to promote the success, or whatever you might call it, in students' learning.
Thank you, Rui. Neuza, what should be the priorities for teacher training when it comes to emerging technologies like AI in education?
Again, I will say that I'm on the same pace as Rui. because I will answer your question, but I need to take a step back. And I need to say that when the topic is AI, I think we need to start focusing on schools before we focus on teachers. And why do I say this? Because I think schools need to have a clear, a reflected institutional policy about it. It doesn't need to be something stable, because these things change a lot, but the schools need to have something. It should not be every teacher thinking about whatever he or she wants to use this week or the week before this one or the next one. I think we need to help schools define a policy, guidelines, and they also should provide support, a support system for teachers, and they need to know who they should call when they have a doubt about something. So they should not start doing things on their own. I think this is critical nowadays. And I go a little bit deeper on this by saying that if a school does not have anything clear about AI, if there is no stable information about it, if there is no one available for helping a teacher use AI, I think she or he shouldn't use it in a classroom. I think they can do it individually and as citizens and professionals, explore it on their own free time and even for professional duties, but not to put it on their student hands. Because he or she can find himself on a very critical process, because he might be doing something that it's not properly considering students' age, considering data security, considering compliance with GDPR and so on. So I'm not saying teachers shouldn't use it and we shouldn't support them. I'm saying that we should start with schools and should start with proper AI solutions. Normally, these are not the free version of AI tools that we have available. I'm sorry to say that. I would like to say different, but it's not the case. So I would like to say that we should help schools, and if you and for answering your question that focused specifically on teacher training, I would say that we should start with initial teacher education, and this is our field, universities and schools of education, and then we should try to focus on teachers' continuous professional development or continuous training. But we should start with initial teacher education, because this is where teacher believes, as I said before, which is critical, start to be developed. Well, not developed, because we all have beliefs about what a teacher is, even if we are not a teacher, but start to be rearranged in a certain way. If we focus about continuous professional development, I would say that, of course, using tools, exploring tools is very important, but we should focus on something that Nuno has considered previously, which is the fundamental aspects of AI, how it works, what it means. I think this is very important. Also, the legal aspects, the ecological aspects, and the ethical aspects of AI. This is also very important. And of course, tools are relevant, but the pedagogical use of those tools is even more relevant. So how this can be aligned with specific pedagogical approaches, how this can be aligned with the curricula. I think this is also critical. So these are topics that I think that should be considered when we prioritize what will be the focus on teacher training when it considers AI in education.
Thank you very much, Neuza. Finally, Nuno, how can informatics education shift from focusing on tools to fostering real digital literacy and critical thinking?
So, I believe that in the specific case of informatics education, the focus on tools is not really the issue. The focus has never been on specific tools, but on learning, on the process and on the outcomes. For example, it matters that students learn to code in C#, a programming language, but it is completely irrelevant which development environment they use, as long as it allows them to achieve the learning objectives. The tool is not relevant. It's important to learn how to code in C#, not the tool they use to learn how to code. It can be a simple note software for taking notes or a very developed EDM, also development environment interface. The same goes to the others for other subjects, networks, databases, 3D modeling, multimedia, robotics. It's not important the tool, the subject. It's important. Teachers have always had the pedagogical freedom to adopt the tools that best respond to the context and the needs of the students. I'm talking about in informatics specific case. In fact, in many of the topics across different subjects, the curriculum itself does not suggest specific tools. The teacher should select the most appropriate ones. However, it is important not to forget that digital technology is the subject of study in computer science education. Therefore, tools are always present, and initially students must learn how to work with them. Computer science is a field that primarily encourages critical and reflective thinking in identification and solving problems. The activities can be designed with this in mind and embed critical thinking through real-world scenarios and, whenever possible, integrate into a multidisciplinary approach. Activities can be created with this purpose in mind, embed critical thinking through real-world scenarios. And in case of computer science education, must also go behind technological proficiency and to develop students' abilities to critically evaluate digital information, understand ethical implications of using and creating technology, because in informatics they actually create technology, and applies digital skills in different contexts. I think it's very important to emphasize ethical considerations and global perspectives. This expanded focus prepares students to navigate complex ethical questions surrounding emerging technologies, data privacy, algorithmic bias, and digital rights. This is about AI, and returning to AI, I'd like to quickly highlight 3 ideas. The first one, there are AI chatbots specifically designed to support learning, for example, in coding, which students can use to help them to solve certain challenges. And when they try to get the answer for their problem from these chatbots, they don't provide any solution. Instead, these chatbots they ask questions that make the student think and try out different strategies. And through the interaction, they will not only be able to arrive at the solution, but also understand why it's a good one. And they can use AI to test their solutions and to detect errors. These chatbots can indicate that there are errors and what type of errors they are, but not their exact location. And this leads the students to analyze the code, to reflect critically on what they have done, and along the way they come to understand many concepts and how these are related to others. Second idea, it's not mine. It's one concern brought to us by Professor Dias de Figueiredo, is delegated cognition. That is the fear of delegating tasks to AI that we don't want to do, leading to a loss of cognitive faculties and critical thinking. And for students, this is maybe the first step. Have something that do the job for me. But instead of this, is essential that we consider the use of AI from the perspective of expanding the power of our minds and using them for collaboration and cognitive cooperation to enhance our cognition. And this is a way that we need to work with our students in computer science. And the third idea to close, I like very much Ethan Mollick. It's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and he studies AI, innovation, and startups. He's also an author of several books and a blog that addresses these issues. And in his last book, I think, the Co-Intelligence, he discusses the profound changes that are beginning to be felt in the world of the work in our companies, and which are very important to think about. Because AI is driving rapid change in the enterprises. For example, one idea relates to the use of AI to automate tasks. And those who have the knowledge and skills to use AI to identify which tasks can be automated effectively and how to do it are in advantage. And those who know in detail which tasks constitute a specific job and who have this ability to identify and implement their automation are at an advantage. And it is for this reality that education must prepare our students and our computer science students. It's worth reading that book and the articles they publish in his blog to see how the world is changing and how we need to prepare our students to have different thinking about what we will find in this new world that we are having now with AI, because everything is changing.
Thank you. Let's take a moment to reflect on the highlights of today's conversation. One of the standout points from our discussion with Neuza, Pedro, was the need to rethink teacher training for a digital age. She highlighted how digital technologies, including AI, should not just be add-ons, but deeply embedded in pedagogy and professional development of educators. The key takeaway is that meaningful digital integration starts with empowered and well-prepared teachers. This emphasizes the foundational teacher training is for the success of any innovation in education. Another significant highlight was the example by Nuno Dorotea on the use of AI tools for formative assessment. He described how AI can personalize feedback and support students' learning pathways. The main insight here is that technology can foster more inclusive and personalized learning experiences. This showcases the importance of designing informatics education, not just around tools, but around learners' needs. Finally, Rui Pacheco shared the valued insights on the transition from printed textbooks to dynamic digital platforms. He discussed the opportunities this shift brings for richer, more interactive learning environments, and also the challenges of ensuring accessibility and quality. The essential point is that content innovation must go hand in hand with pedagogical relevance. This illustrates the importance of user-focused design in education publishing. These discussions have provided us with a wealth of knowledge and new perspectives on rethinking informatics education through digital technologies and AI. It's clear that if we want to prepare digital natives for a fast-changing world, we need to align content, pedagogy and technology in a meaningful, future-ready way. Dear Neuza, Nuno, and Rui, thank you for being with us today. Your experience and insights are truly valuable and help us move forward in our mission to reshape informatics education. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us and on this episode of Digital First Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on digitalfirstnetwork.eu and follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Digital First Network to stay updated on upcoming podcast videos and webinars. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep innovating.
Digital First Podcast. Shaping the future of informatics education in primary and secondary schools.